How would you like to make your first million? And today we have Patrick Donadio with us, and he empowers senior leaders and teams to achieve measurable, sustained growth by transforming the communication strategy. As communication strategist speaker, coach, and author, he delivered engaging keynotes and practical training and personalized coaching. So, Patrick, tell us, what are the 5 steps that you recommend entrepreneurs in order to make the first million?
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
Well, thank you, Harry. Great to be with you. I've got 5 steps that I think have been helpful for me, and I hope will be helpful to your viewers. Step number 1 is no matter what business you're in, we're all in the problem-solving business. So number 1, be very clear about what problem do you solve, right? So people will pay for solutions and value. So the clearer you are with your problem and solution, the more effective you're going to be, the longer you're going to be in business. So, I talk a lot about communication skills, and the first step to being a good communicator is having a clear intention. So in my case, the problem that I solve is helping people become better communicators. And I do that in a lot of different ways. But I think number 1 is get clarity about what's the real problem you solve. Number 2 is you've got to become the go-to expert, right? The person who is distinct, different, or unique. There's a lot of people that might be solving that problem, but how do you do it differently? So a question you could ask yourself is, most organizations do blank, but what we do is blank. So what makes you different or unique or distinct? For me, again, a lot of people talk about communication skills, but I created a 6-step process to be a better communicator. So I'm a big process person. So these are great questions because I think a lot of businesses kind of jump right in before they spend a little bit of time getting clarity on these steps. So number 3, and you're not going to be surprised that number 3 is you got to really be an effective communicator, right? We spend 80% of our waking day in some form of communication. So if you want to be very successful, you have to be a great communicator. And that means you have to communicate not just in person, but in writing, in front of groups, on media like we're doing today. And so the better you communicate, the better results you get. And so if you can't articulate your value, then you can't sell it. And if you can't sell it, you're not going to be in business. So communication, connection, clarity, that's step number 3. And we can go deeper on all these if you like. I just want to hit them fairly quickly so people know what the 5 steps are. Number 4, this is one that I think I had to struggle with, is that you have to be able to sell, market, and build deep relationships. Now, a lot of people get into the business because they feel like they have a passion about something or they're really good at it. So even if you have really good expertise, if you can't sell or market or build relationships, you're not going to be around. And Harry, I don't know about you, but I've been in the business for 3 decades, speaking, training, coaching, and in this kind of field. And I see a lot of people that want to become speakers or coaches. They all have a story they want to tell, but they forget that it's not about your content. It's about your sales ability. So people buy from people they like, know, and trust, right? So again, going back to communications is number 3, building those relationships. It's all about sales and marketing. And again, I'm a big believer in having a sales system or a marketing system or a process. So the more structured you can become, the better. And number 5 is something I learned probably a little later than I wish I would have. And that is, instead of thinking about next, is to think about deep and narrow. So a lot of people, they want to get the next client. They want to get the next sale. And I did this for a lot of years. I want to get the next speech. I want to get the next workshop. But once I realized to shift the mentality to move away from what I call that fixed mindset of next to the growth mindset of how can I go deeper and narrow? So for example, when I started, I was doing 70, 80 dates a year with 70, 80 clients. Well, eventually when I got to this idea of deep and narrow, I'm doing maybe a little bit less, but I'm working with fewer clients, which means it's a lot less work. I don't have as many invoices. Instead of 70 invoices, now I have 40 invoices, right? So when you work with a client, don't think about that particular engagement. Think about how can I go deep and narrow? So I'll give you a quick example. For me, again, as a speaker and a trainer, somebody brings me in to do a conference speech, right? Oh, good, I'm done. But what I do then is I do a lot of questions up front. I do my needs analysis to try to figure out what their problems are. And I find out what their problems are, not just a problem for that keynote, but other problems. So when I finish that event, I come back, I do a debrief, and I explain other things that I learned that we didn't have time to talk about that maybe we can go a little bit deeper on. So scaling and deep and narrow, that's number 5. Now, I know I went through this pretty quickly, so we can go back and review them. I'll do a quick summary if that's okay with you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So again, number 1, what problem do you solve, right? You need to be a specific solution provider. Number 2, you've got to be the expert and you got to be distinct in that solution that you provide. Number 3, it all comes back to great communication skills. So if you want to be in business for a long time and you're not a really good communicator, invest in your communication skills. Number 3, sales, sell, right? It's marketing, it's selling. It's not just about being out there, but it's about building trusted relationships, getting referrals, getting repeat business. And number 5 is scaling and going deeper and wider. So I would say those are my 5 steps that I think have been helpful for me.
Brilliant. Patrick, the communicate effectively the value, right? Getting to the first million is, like you shared, marketing and sales exercise. However, we have a lot of entrepreneurs that are telling me, Harry, but look, every time that I offer my product, they ask me for discounts. And I always telling them, look, they're asking you for discount because you are not communicating the value effectively. If you, whatever you talking to or whatever you're copywriting or whatever you're writing, this is the outcome that you get. And then they say, well, I don't want to sell. I don't like selling. And they take a negative connotation about sales and marketing, which makes things worse. Because look, your step 3 is communicate effectively everything, but especially value. And then your step 4 is go out and sell and marketing. So if they have a problem with the communication with the step 3, then you're gonna struggle in the step 4. So Patrick, tell us any secrets or what can you share for our audience? What are the tips to communicate the value effectively? And if, when you talk about your pricing, if all you get is, can I have a discount? Can I have this? Definitely is not fault of anybody. You are responsible for it. You're not communicating effectively value, and that's the end.
Yeah. So I love that. It's a great question, Harry. So first of all, when I say communicate doesn't just mean talking. It also means listening. And I think a lot of people still, even though it's not necessarily as bad as it used to be, is people think about selling as talking. And to me, selling starts with diagnosing. So you diagnose before you prescribe. You cannot offer value until you know what value means to that particular customer. So don't just jump in with some kind of canned package. Oh, here you go, I can sell this. Start out with a needs assessment. Questions, right? You're a problem solver. So you can't solve the problem until you diagnose the problem. So a good communicator means not only being a good talker, but being a great listener. So if you don't have 5, 6, 7 good questions that you use in your sales process, that'd be the first step, is diagnosing. And once you know what problem they have, then you can communicate the value based on the need, right? So early on, when I used to do a program or a speech, when I first started, like, here's my fee. Oh, that's a lot of money for an hour. That's a lot of money for 1 hour. Then I realized I was not doing a very good job of communicating the value. So now what I do, and I don't know, there's not right or wrong way, but I've gotten to the habit of offering options. So I have a good, better, best approach. So they have choices. Now, you don't have to do that because I didn't do that for a long time. I would just have, here's the fee. But I realized that, not one size fits all. So I got small companies, I got big companies, so some companies don't have big budgets. So I have this other approach is once we diagnose, then we come back and we give some solution options. And again,
don't say that word for them, because in this speaking thing, you have so many different things from the big companies to small companies, right?
Right. And so it used to be like, here's my fee. It's like, for example, here's my fee. And then there are 4 things that come with this fee. And then the next level, there are 7 things that come with this fee. And then the biggest level, there are 12 things that come with this fee. So they go, wow, that's why I'm paying more, because I'm getting this, So you have to enunciate the value. You got to be clear about the value. You got to show the value. Don't just assume that people know what the value is. So I hope that help a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes, Patrick, I said, say, okay, Harry, we cannot afford anything. I said, okay, so you no fee? Okay, let's do something. If I go there and I speak for free, can I offer my product and service at the end? If that will work for you? And sometimes they say, okay, that's fantastic because we love to have you, but we cannot offer, and that also works.
Yes.
So it also works, and depends, of course, the audience, the product and service that you have. But
Right.
so at the end of the day, and I'm glad that we're getting into this conversation, Patrick, is but also accommodate the client as well, right? If Microsoft contact me and said, Harry, come and speak, I'm not gonna do it for free.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna do it for a reason of wrong either. Okay.
Right.
However, we have to accommodate, sometimes charity, sometimes this, sometimes that, right? So in the end, Patrick, what do you think that people have negative connotation when it comes to sales and marketing? When I saw you speaking about sales and marketing, and your eye shine and you're excited about it, where 98% of people, when you mention these words, sales and marketing, they hate sales, they hate marketing, they don't want salespeople around. And if you go to your friends or whatever and say, look, I love to sell, they're already not looking at you. However, the 500 millionaires that we interview in this podcast, every time that we talk about the subject, sales and marketing, they behave exactly like you. Their eyes shine, they are all excited, they love it. Though so far, out of the 500 millionaires that we interviewed in this podcast, no one had told me yet, Harry, I hate marketing. Harry, I hate sales. It's the opposite. They get excited. So like you did talking about it, I can see. Yeah, you couldn't hide it. You cannot hide it.
Yeah.
So,
you know why I get excited, Harry?
Tell us why.
Because I had a mindset shift later on. When I first started, I had this really stereotypical idea of what sales is. It's where you're pushing stuff on people that they don't really want or need. I learned after years of struggling, like, you know what? I'm really good and I offer value. So now instead of thinking I'm selling, here's what I say to myself. I'm helping people buy. I'm not selling. I'm helping people buy. I know I offer value. I know I offer a great product. I know people are pleased and happy. Again, this sometimes comes with confidence and experience, but when you shift from a fixed to a growth mindset, sales means a different meaning to you, and therefore you can get excited, right?
Yeah, it would be a
I think for me-
disservice if they don't work with you, because you know that you can look after them better than anybody else. So that's why
Exactly.
you get excited. I said, look, work with me. I can know what I can do for you. So
Right.
when you achieve that, so then what advice do you have for, because we all been there, Patrick, yeah?
Yes.
And like I told you, something that cost me millions, literally, because the beginning of my career as an entrepreneur, we have a property business, and I remember what, like kind of 2008, when it was a little bit of recession, and I have a lot of units. I have a lot of units, and of course, they were getting more empty as usual because it was a global recession. Okay, people didn't lose the job and so on. And then I had this brilliant idea to lower my prices, and this was huge mistake, because at the end of the day, backfired big time, because the people that were paying more, they left, because if now you have cheap accommodation, whoever takes this accommodation don't care that the house is clean or the whatever, they just want something cheap. So those ones that like the house clean, they left. And then I have all my portfolio property full of people that want to pay cheap and doesn't care about the thing. And it took me good time to get back to the process, and it was a painful lesson, because at the end of the day, I have the same amount of vacancy, maybe more, and then less money was coming in, and more problems increases. So I learned this that we're talking about in a high way. Do you have any story or any challenge that you have at the beginning in terms of pricing, communicating value? By the way, my problem was still the same. I was not communicating the value effectively, or I should increase my sales and marketing activity, right? Rather than drop the prices. Yeah, so I'm trying to do something easy. Okay, let's drop the prices and I fix it. Whether it took 2 years to fix is, again, marketing, say, communicate the value effectively, try to get to, wait. You cannot even get rid of these people, so you have to wait until they leave, and then make sure the new people you bring. And so tell us, when do you have that breakthrough? What happened?
Well, I think what happened for me was that I found myself kind of getting into what I call like a rote approach. I have a script. I start like talking like a robot. I'm not present. I'm not being there. I'm so busy I'm thinking about me, right? It's all about me. And I realized that really the first step, it's all
you and next, right?
Yeah, it's all about them, right? Them first. So listen, I'm an extrovert. I grew up in an ethnic community. I'm all about relationships. These are all important things that go into the sales process. I'm a problem solver too. I love to fix things. So again, I'm not saying that, you have to be ethnic but my point is you've got to come at it as if you are really involved and solution focused. So you got to be able to understand what their problems are, and then you have to communicate it and communicate it and communicate it. But the first thing starts, right? People work with people they know, like, and trust. So you get it. Don't kiss on the first date. I hate to use that term, but you want to get to know people. You want to get to meet them. You don't want to always ask for things. You want to make deposits, right? A little phrase I used to learn years ago was make a deposit before you make a withdrawal. So even like in social media, you don't like connect with somebody on LinkedIn and the first thing you say is, "Hey, can you hire me?" I mean, you like their post, you make a nice comment, you build relationships. You got to be honest. I'm not saying you have to be dishonest. But so number one is you have to really think about building great relationships. Number two, you have to make sure you understand, because if you aren't understanding your value, you cannot communicate it. That's why I go back to the first step, right? What problem do you solve? And what value do you bring? And so for some of you who are struggling in sales, it might be because you haven't done a good enough job identifying the real problem you solve and the real value you bring. Because once you're clear about that, then you get this passion and this excitement about what you can do to help other people. And then the third thing is you can never over communicate, right? Here's a very important component. Communication is not an event. It's a process. We think I make one phone call and I'm going to get a sale. We think I send out one email, I'm going to get business. No, it's a process, and you have to build it as a process. You have to slowly build the relationship. You have to slowly earn the right, to get the business. Now, I know these are all a lot of things to share in a short period of time. I hope people are starting to understand that you really got to be committed to being a kind of a people person, learning how to adapt your styles to other people. So one of the steps in the impact process is the P step, and that is, you want to treat people the way they want to be treated, right? You don't want to treat people the way you want to be treated. Like, I'm an extrovert. I like to talk, but if I'm with an introvert, I'm going to be quiet and ask a lot of questions because I know that that's the style that works best with them. So let me stop there and see if that's kind of helpful, as I gave you some ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then tell us your story, how you decide to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because my undergrad degree is in radio and television, and I thought I wanted to be on radio, and I had started doing some work in college, and I realized right away
well, you are now.
I know, but
from radio.
Exactly. But at that point in time, I realized that it wasn't fun just to be in a small room by yourself. And in that kind of industry, if you don't do well in the ratings, you got to change jobs every 3 to 5 years. So I learned that it wasn't really what I thought. So I switched my major to radio TV management. And from there, all of a sudden, I got a job because I was working the other thing is I worked my way through college. I didn't grow up in I grew up in a very blue collar family. I pretty much paid my way, which is almost impossible today because it's so expensive. But I learned a lot as I was going through my younger years about, work ethic. And so I became a resident assistant and I had to manage and lead people. And so eventually I got a job at the university after I got my MBA, which, by the way, the university paid for, because I worked for that. So the long story short is I worked at the university for a couple of years. I took a job as a director for an association, and now I'm running an association and I'm speaking on behalf of the association, and I'm hiring speakers, and I'm saying to myself, wow, these people get paid a lot of money, and I think I'm pretty good. I think I could do this. So that's how I ended up becoming an entrepreneur. Is I quit my job because I thought, gosh, I could do this. And I just quit. I don't have any. I just quit my job cold turkey and started my business. And I struggled for the first couple of years because I didn't know how to sell.
Like everybody else.
Yeah. But I was smart in the sense.
The first 2 years
I was smart in the sense Yeah, I knew that I needed to have a nest egg because I had read, and this is true for years, there's been this case, that most businesses, particularly small businesses, do not make it past year 2 or 3. So when I quit my job, I will say that I had enough money to live on for at least about a year and a half. So that was the cushion. And luckily, I spent most of that the first year until I realized that I needed to learn about sales and marketing and systems. And,
Mhm.
Harry, the best thing I ever did was I joined the National Speakers Association.
Oh,
And when
wow.
I joined this organization, I met people who were 5, 10 years ahead of me who were able to help me. So another important point about staying in business is to have a community or a network of colleagues who are not your competitors, who are your supporters, who can be there for you and you can help each other. So that decision to join the National Speakers Association is really what turned my business around because started hanging out with people who knew what they were doing and they were teaching me how to do it.
So then, Patrick, tell us what, in terms of about overcoming the fear of public speaking. This is something that we have trained thousands of people all over the world. Yeah. So how you overcome the fear of public speaking? Because you say, well, I can do that, but then the first time that you did it, what happened there?
Well, I mean, I was doing it, but I wasn't getting paid a lot, right? This is very common. You know this, Harry. I'm sure people know this, that the number one fear, according to a lot of research, is, it's not the fear of death or paying taxes, it's the fear of speaking in front of groups. So it's a very common fear. And like everything else, right, the more you do it, the better you get. So it's just a skill that gets better with practice and experience. So a lot of people are afraid of it, but here's the thing that I learned, that it's like everything else. Like, being on a podcast could be very nerve-wracking, but the more you do it, the easier it gets, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The more
So
you
I
do it, the
would
better
say
you
that
become. Yeah.
exactly. So anybody who's in business, you want to continually find ways to keep yourself out in front of groups. And if you're in business and you're not in the business of speaking, I would definitely recommend you have some kind of a program you go out in the communities to do that's educational,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you got groups like Rotary Club and you have a lot of civic groups that need speakers all the time. And so if you would get in front of a group like that, and you're not getting paid, but you're solving a problem, right? You're talking to the group about how, you can help them with some problem. It's fun, it's entertaining. And at the end of the day, you're not selling them, but they get to know you. They get to see you as an expert. So speaking, now for me, luckily that's my business, but that to me is the best way to grow your business. Now, I also am a certified coach and I work a lot with coaches and I tell coaches the same thing. If you want to grow your coaching business, come up with a 20-minute, 30-minute little presentation that is something that you can talk about that relates to your expertise, that gives some tips, and get out there in front of groups and share this message, give them some value, and people are going to get to know you. And once they get to know you and they know you're an expert, they're going to want to be more likely to work with you.
So then, Patrick, the uh, one one of the things about having the speaking business, okay, is that exactly you need to find the, like I said, the national speaking associations and other other avenues. And I remember the also deal with this. I think that I remember I was doing a lot of workshops, 20 people, 100 people, 200 people. So I'm used to go to these rooms and speak. And I'm used to see their face and get close to them. And one day I go, I was speaking from about my book in front of 2,000 people. And I told all my friends, look, go there. And I'm thinking, this is going to be the same thing. Oh my God. And then when I jump into the thing, number one, I couldn't see anybody because this is so huge that is dark. And then I have
Right.
two big screens that my face is so big. And then they are about to pass the microphone. I cannot see any of my friends. I can only see that I see a red dot behind, which is the camera that pointed to the big TV. And I'm freaking out. And I'm shaking and I'm trying to smile. And I remember that my face started to go sad and I'm fighting with my face. I know this camera is pointing at me and in 30 seconds, they're going to pass the mic and I have butterflies and everything. It was terrible. Eventually, I don't know how I managed to take the microphone and fake it.
Yeah.
Until I make it and I'm faking there and get out of the situation. And by the way, it turns out to be amazing. There is always a fake time for everything.
Yes.
And,
yeah. And I coach a lot of people on their speaking skills, and I do that as a living as well. In addition to training, I do coaching. And I was going to share a couple tips right now. You brought up some good points. Tip number one, you have to rehearse your presentation. If you can't rehearse the whole thing, I understand that, but don't ever assume you can just do it in your head and then get up and do it. It doesn't work that way. So here's my favorite tip. If you're ever going to make a presentation, you don't have a lot of time to rehearse, I would say here are the two things you must always rehearse. Number one, your opening. You need to know what you're going to say in the first 2 minutes. You need to practice it 3 or 4 times. So when you get up there, when you open your mouth, you know exactly what you're going to say. And that makes you feel more comfortable because you already know, right, what you're going to talk about. A lot of the fear comes from the fear of the unknown. So that's number one. Know your opening really well. And that builds in a little comfort level. Number two, structure your presentation. If you're going to use slides that have little cues to remind you of where you're going, right? So build in a process or a structure that makes it easy for you to remember your content. And then the other thing you want to really remember and practice is your closing. Because I've seen some really good presentations salvaged by a great close and ruined by a poor close. So the last thing you say is really important. So again, these are just a couple simple things. And, if you like, I have an article on the 8 common mistakes people make when they make presentations. I can ask you to put it up on the liner notes if people want that. But I think it's a very important skill, that we all need to be better at, particularly owners of businesses who have this opportunity to communicate their value to groups.
And anyway, someone that want to develop the speaking business, Patrick, after joining the National Speakers Association, any more tips that you can share with them that you have done and that worked for you?
Yeah. Well, again, I think those 5 things I shared at the beginning were all the things that worked for me. But in terms of like speaking and training, again, I'm just a big proponent. If you want to be a coach, I would recommend the International Coach Federation. If you want to be a speaker, I would recommend the National Speakers Association, because that's where you're going to learn all these skills. And, we have chapters all across the country, across the world. And in the U.S., we have 35 chapters in all these different states. So I happen to be in Columbus, Ohio. We have a chapter here. And what we've put together now is we have what's called a Speaker Academy. It's like a master's program. It's a 4-month intensive program on all the things you need to know to run a speaking business. So it's like anything else, right? You have to invest a little bit, but you can do it like me, quit your job and take 8 years to figure it out, or you can invest a little bit of money, join an organization where you're going to have people who can help you get there. And even if you don't join the organization, if you're listening right now and you're a business owner, I highly encourage you to come up with a group of advisors, people that you can interact with. If it's only quarterly, where you can share each other's challenges and help each other. Because, it's lonely at the top, and it's really helpful when you have a team of others who can dare to support you.
And then, Patrick, what are when you are speaking, right? What are the difference that speaking for corporate events versus to speaking to entrepreneurs versus to speaking with regular people, or versus to speaking with the Chamber of Commerce? What are because you said something that is very important. I realized that it's never about you. It's about them. And I think the whole fear of public speaking is that because people are making the whole speech, the whole thing about themselves. And also they're not prepared. They haven't practiced. Because you haven't practiced and you're not prepared, and then you don't know your audience, this combination can work really. But the other day in the green room, I was in a conference, and the room was full of startup founders, okay? And a speaker goes there speaking about critical thinking. And he's giving a speech about, when you have an idea, you have to diversify in these ideas. You need to check the pros and cons. You need to say what is available, what is not available. You have to go to this process. And then is when the idea goes forward. I'm listening to all this. I said, look, if this guy follows this process, they're going to die, because in a startup, you need to speed of implementation. So when you're running a multinational, you can do this critical thinking process, but it's not for these people. So they're speaking without knowing. He didn't, it's a very successful speaker, and, he get paid a lot of money to go give this conference about critical thinking, but that conference are for corporate, for multinational, for another type. But if the room is full of startup founders and you go with this, and the worst thing is everybody was taking notes, and I'm listening all this, and oh my God.
Right. Yeah.
This is not gonna work. These guys don't need this. They need to take action fast and try and fail quickly because they are in the 0 to 1. They are startup founders. They can. There is no time for critical thinking when you are starting a company and you're learning everything by yourself, right? But anyway, so tell us about what have been this process for you and what you recommend speakers about know about your audience before you go and speak.
Well, one thing that I've learned a lot over the years, and I tell all my speaking coaching clients, is that you really got to do your needs assessment up front. You got to get to know the audience. So whenever possible, if you can have a conference call or a meeting with the organizer and ask them to tell you more about the group. Because the last thing you want to do is just go in there and take your stuff and just, I like to say, you don't want to show up and throw up. Right? You want to be prepared. You want to know their challenges. You want to tailor your content to their problems, right? You're a problem solver. So a very important question that I ask, and you should be asking if you're going to give a presentation, is this question. What are the top 3 challenges this group is facing when they think about blank? So like, what are the top 3 challenges this group is facing when we think about critical thinking? What would you like me to do to help them be more effective at that? What's keeping them up at night, right? So you're the problem solver. The other thing is really helpful is you got to use their language, right? Again, I've been doing this for a long time, and you're right. I've spoken to libraries, I've spoken to banks, credit unions. I've been on the big stage with the IMAG, like you've talked about, many times. But the thing that I learned is you got to use the right language. So, for example, if I'm talking to credit unions and I call their clients customers, they're going to think I'm an idiot. Credit unions don't have customers, they have members. And it's just that one word that could just ruin the whole relationship because then you lose the trust when you say, oh, on your customers, they go, we don't have customers, right? So like one other quick tip, like if you're speaking to a group, go to the website. If there's a CEO page or there's an annual letter, read the annual report, pull out a couple things and weave those into your talk. So you might be saying, the 4th step of the process is activate. And I just was checking at the CEO report, and I know last year you've actually opened up 4 new locations where you're engaging and activating new clients. Well, that's a great, so just that simple phrase. I looked at the website, I saw your report, I know that you've opened up 7 stores. These are the simple little things that don't take a lot of time to communicate, but they take a little bit of time to come prepared. So you want the audience to think that this is a talk just for them, even if it's only 20% or 50% is just for them. The rest of it's the same old talk. So those are a couple things that I think are helpful. That again, but most people I think just assume, oh, I can talk. I'll just put some notes down. I'll put a couple slides together and I'll go out there.
Yeah, and then Patrick, are the most challenging. What has been the biggest challenge in your career as an entrepreneur and how you overcome that challenge?
Yeah. The biggest challenge for me was the idea that I don't like to have a big staff. So I didn't realize the importance of systems and processes, right? And I was a goodwill ambassador to Japan years ago, and I spent 5 weeks in Japan through Rotary International. And I was living with Japanese families. I was visiting, different places. And then, of course, we came back to the States. And then I was kind of communicating to our groups here what it was like to be in Japan. And then Japan sent a team here and they went back and talked about the U.S. So it was a cultural exchange. But one thing I learned, that was really important to me while I was on that trip was the importance of systems. So just a quick little story. I was staying with Japanese families. And my first night, I'm with this host family and they bring out sushi. Well, I'm not a big sushi fan, but I want to be very polite. So I said, oh, sushi, thank you so much. And I ate the sushi, even though I didn't like it. And the next day I went to a new family and they said to the family, he likes sushi. So now I got 2 plates of sushi. And the third family, I got 4. So I said to the 4th family, I said, listen, I'm really homesick. Can you take me to McDonald's? And I told the kids because the kids are understanding English and they told their parents I went to McDonald's, right? It could be any fast food restaurant. I'm eating the burger, I'm eating the fries, and all of a sudden I got this idea. No matter where you go in the world, McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, the fast food tastes exactly the same because they got a system. So I came back to the States. I read the book E-Myth by Michael Gerber, and I began to put together these systems and processes to make my business more efficient. So scale is an important component. You can't do it by yourself. You can hire a lot of people. You can also create systems. So to me, that was a big turning point for me when I came back and put together the marketing systems I have, the presentation skills systems, and of course, eventually my communicating with impact system. So if you're not into systems, and the good thing, Harry, today AI can be so helpful. I'm not saying it's the cure all and fix all, but you could ask AI to help you take a look at your processes and help you fine tune it or make it a little bit better. So there's a lot of tools that are available today that we didn't have, or I don't know when you started, but I didn't have because when I started, we didn't even have email.
Absolutely. So, Patrick, the other thing that we're going to talk about is about the process of writing a book, yeah, which is a very process that is hard. I wrote several. So, tell us what inspired you to write this book and your favorite chapter and why.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know what inspired me to write the book is people kept asking me, "Do you have a book?" And I'd say, "No." They go, "Well, I would love to read your. I mean, this is a great process. I would love to read your book." So, a lot of people waited too long to write my book. I'll be upfront, right? But some people start too soon. So I waited too long. It was probably into my second decade before I got my book done.
It's not a bad idea. I believe you're gonna write a book. It has to be a good one, and
yeah,
you need to have. You need to
I'm
have
glad
some
I
time
waited,
to know
right.
what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, yeah. So what inspired me was the fact that people kept asking me for it. And what inspired me also was this, Harry, is I realized that there were people that couldn't afford me. And I'm like, again, I like to make money, but I really like to make an impact, no pun intended. So I wrote the book because if there are people that can't hire me to come and speak, they can get the book and they can learn the process and they can still get some value. So it's a nice tool that helps me add value to my clients. But I tell you what, I'm not a writer. So here's how I wrote my book. I recorded my full day workshop. I had it transcribed. And then I took those notes and I massaged that. And this is before AI, so it'd be easier today if I had AI to help me sort it out. But I transcribed the workshop. I started to come up with chapters and I started writing the book. And then I fine-tuned the system. And eventually I got to like 80% of the way there. And this is the thing I've been saying all the time, right? When you get to a point where you need help, you got to ask for help. So I hired a book coach to get me to the last 10% to get the book done, published, and up on Amazon. So but it was a long process. Again, easier today if you have all these nice tools. But, favorite chapter is the first chapter. The first chapter in the book is the intention, right? Every communication starts with a thought. Think before you speak. And in every chapter, I have a little story that I open up with. Mostly they're my stories, but the first chapter is a story that my father-in-law told me that I put in the book about an intention that was shifted by one of his clients. So anyways, the idea of having a book, is really a powerful tool. It's a great marketing tool. It's a great way to build your expertise. And to me, most important, it's a great way to add value to those who can't afford, me coming in, doing a full day workshop or coaching them for 3 months.
So tell us about your workshop and how long is it? And you do it for corporate, for regular people? How long is it? Can you tell us a little bit more about your workshop?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Yeah. So my signature program is Communicating with Impact. And so if you don't mind, I'm going to take 60 seconds. I'm just going to share the 6 steps in the impact process so people are familiar with it.
Go for it. Yeah.
So it's easy. It's an acronym. The I already mentions for intention, right? Think before you speak. The clearer the intention, the more effective the communication. The M is for the message and the method. So pick the right method for the intention. If you want to build relationships, it's better to do that in person or on the phone than sending a text, right? And in addition to the method, you want to craft an important message. That means you have to have a good opening, you have to have a good body, a good closing, right? And so in the M step, we talk a lot about, how to write effective emails, how to write a presentation. The P is the person, right? So how do you personalize this communication to the receiver? Right. So everybody's different. You got introverts, analyticals, relationals, you got corporations, you have nonprofits. So again, we talked about personalizing the message, like doing a needs assessment. That's the IMP, I am planning. The second half is the AC. How do you activate the message? So A is activate, active listening, and active engagement. And really to be a great communicator and a presenter today, you got to be engaging, you got to be entertaining, right? You just can't get up there and read a book. And then, of course, active listening. I mean, I don't know about you, Harry, but I've been asking this question for 2 decades in my audiences. I ask, how many of you ever had a formal 60-minute listening skills workshop? And less than 10% of the audience say they have. So we don't teach listening skills. It's a very important skill. C is clarify, right? how do you make sure the message you sent is the same message? And then the T is the secret sauce, and that is how do you transform this communication back to the intention? So we talk about two types of transformations, external transformations and then internal transformations that I touched on a little bit about the fixed and the growth mindset. So that's the impact process, right? I just give it to you in like a minute, but I've done this in a full day workshop. We do it in a half a day workshop. I did it actually, believe it or not, for our corporate holiday party. They had me come in. They had a big group together for the holidays, and I did 45 minutes, fun, engaging ways to talk about communication. And then, of course, the next day I sent them a handout with all these tips, but it was just a fun little game exercises to get people thinking. And so I've done it in all these different ways. And of course, I also do it in a coaching program. So you can do a 3-month, 6-month coaching program to be a better communicator. So that's kind of the nutshell of what that program is. But in addition, I have this impact process. I have presenting with impact. I have leading with impact. I have branding with impact. So I use this impact process for a lot of different areas to help people get better as a leader.
So what is your last message for entrepreneurs out there that want to grow the business?
Yeah, well, I have a couple things. Number one is have a system or a process for your sales and marketing, right? We know that's important. We know we don't like to do it. If you have a process, it's going to be better. Number two, we're always continuous learners. So don't be afraid to try something new. And when you do, ask yourself 2 questions. What did I do well? And what can I do differently the next time? Number 3, find some mentors or a team of other professionals like yourself that can help you. So you can go to them like we were here today helping each other, right? And then the last thing is nothing changed until you change. So we covered a lot today, Harry. I really enjoyed being with you. I hope your listeners got a couple ideas, but here's the most important thing. If you just take one thing we talked about today and put it into practice, I think you'll see a bigger impact on yourself and your clients. So that's my closing comments, Harry. I hope that's been a helpful day for you.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Patrick. Yeah, communicating effectively with impact. Yeah. And also learn how to communicate the value effectively. I believe that also for entrepreneurs,
Yes.
the fastest way to, one of the most fastest and more powerful way to expand your business is from the stage, something that we have done personally, and we believe that if you can learn how to speak, communicate effectively, like you see behind my screen speakers, at least.
I see a lot of folks I know back there, Harry.
Yeah, we bump into each other backstage a lot. So anyway, so thank you so much, Patrick, for the broadcast, and for all of you following the Unstoppable podcast. You now connected. So how brave entrepreneur like Patrick break that wall and achieve the first million. Bye for now.
Yeah.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.